Start. Hello, IB Riddleman. This is Trix. We have no Dominic again. Dominic is gone.
And I am very sore. I walked a half marathon today.
And I've got a blocked nose, so this will be great. This will be the best worst episode since the Sonic Adventure episode.
Yes,
Sonic
best
Adventure
worst
2.
episode 2.
But welcome to Dissonant Waves, episode 128 is my random guess at the number that we're on. If I'm correct, then I'm correct. We have a couple of albums to talk about today. We have The Cure's Pornography. I forget the rest. Now, we also have Hockey Dads, Live at the Drive-In, plus their Early Days EP, plus their side project, Geoff and the Spicolis, No Shirt, No Shoes, No Service. And to top it all off, we have Dominic, who attempted to do an April Fool's joke by picking 100 gecs' self-titled EP and Black Country New Roads, Ants from Up There Deluxe Edition this time, which is Ants from Up There plus a live album.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Trix, what should we go through first?
How about we start with one that we've already really covered?
Ants from Up There?
Yeah.
So, this is... We've talked about Ants from Up There before. Obviously, I absolutely adore this album. Obviously, Dominic adores this album. I think you liked it as well, just not as much as us.
I liked it. Just definitely not as much as you.
And Dominic was like, here's the joke. They got new albums out, so we'll pick this again. And, not gonna lie, Dominic, your April Fool's joke didn't really have much payoff to begin with. So,
yeah.
We've already covered Ants from Up There before. I'm not too interested in covering it fully again. It's still a good album. I don't have any differences in opinion since when I've covered it, other than that I still enjoy it, and it's probably lasted longer than I thought it would. However, we do have a full live album to go through here, and there's a question here. We're covering two live albums. One where the whole gimmick is that it's happening at a drive-in theater, and the other one where the gimmick is that there is no gimmick. It's just a live album in front of what seems to be a pretty small crowd.
Yeah.
And Dominic mentioned that he felt he said this was a slog to get through in this iteration. I think he believes it's because this was a redoing something that we've already done here, or it's because it's length of the album. I didn't bother listening to Ants from Up There again this week. I've listened to it enough plenty other times this year as well that I haven't needed to. And I went straight to the live album, and look, they seem like they were pretty good live. There's no doubt about that. Isaac Wood's vocals are near perfect compared to the studio version. And yeah, this live album was just... It's a deluxe edition. It's cool to have some bonus tracks. But this added nothing.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's Ants from Up There, but in front of a small crowd.
Well, it's not really Ants from Up There. It's more for the first time tracks. I think the only Ants from Up There tracks are Mark's Theme, Basketball Shoes, and Bread Song.
Apologies, I'm exhausted and barely too interested in Black Country New Road, if I'm going to be honest.
That's entirely fair. Well, Dominic, I'll write what Dominic's thoughts were on doing this. He said, obviously I did this for the meme, and it definitely feels like a slog to get through in this iteration, but it's quite remarkable to have the Isaac Woods era of BCNR contained effectively in one release. The live tracks more or less do their best at staying faithful to the studio tracks. Instrumental probably sounds the most compromised / different, and I still maintain the sound and quality difference between For the First Time tracks and Ants from Up There are bigger than you would think. Still, this is a touching goodbye to one of the UK's most interesting modern singers. It's astounding how much Basketball Shoes can sound like it's a studio version, or even Bread Song. My real regret is that we didn't get a live version of Place Where He Inserted the Blade, but I guess you can't always get what you want. This band has achieved so much with so little time. I'm very interested to listen to the new live album, which is the Live at Bush Hole one that just got released, and compare this to now that Isaac is gone. But he's also not picking it next week, so the comparison will happen. I gotta add some more disagreements in here as well. Well, I do agree that this is a good small wrap-up of the Isaac Wood era. I don't think it's the best wrap-up. I think it should have... Well, songs like Instrumental and Opus, I feel like have always been more instrumentally focused anyway. To the point where Isaac Wood's probably not so much needed, and the realistic lack of Answer 'Em Up There tunes on there kind of hinders it. But what I really would have preferred to get out of this live album, or if it was going to be a deluxe, was for these live songs to be the old versions where they had all the old lyric changes and stuff. Well, not done, I guess, in there. You know, obviously with Basketball Shoes, where that originally is a bit more honest about how he's having a wet dream about Charlie XCX. I felt like if we had the old live versions with those old versions on there, it probably would have just been a bit more interesting to have on here, rather than just basically the same songs but live, and it's not so interesting live when it's in front of a small crowd. I don't know. I don't hate it. It's still Black Country New Road. I fucking love the Anthem Up There, and I love the hearing them. But yeah, this is it's not really much to talk about on this.
There isn't. This is probably the album I have the least to talk about.
Dominic has said his favourites were Chuck X, Opus, Bread Song, Basketball Shoes, and in addition to the bass album being pretty fantastic, his least favourite is still Goodwill Hunting, which he hates the siren sound, and yeah, I fully disagree with him in that. I'm not going to bother doing favourites or least favourites on this, because again, we've already done this album.
Yeah.
Love you, Dominic, but this April Fool's joke did not pay off.
It did not.
But let's go to the other one in which there is some stuff to talk about that Dominic has picked this week. And that will be the 100 gecs EP. 100 gecs.
This is a fun little EP.
Yeah, it's a lot more interesting to talk about this stuff when we haven't covered it before, isn't it?
It definitely is.
So I'm not gonna lie, this is probably my least favorite out of 100 gecs' releases so far.
I 100% agree.
There is, in fact, I could be wrong. When I saw 100 gecs live, I don't even think they played anything from this EP. I think it's just something they released back in like what was this 2018 or 2017, maybe even earlier.
Something ridiculous like that.
It's actually, I'm actually going to search that up right now because else that's just some poor whatever on my side. I think no shit. It was even earlier. It was search up 100 gecs discography. It was 2016. So
yeah, that sounds.
And that's pretty crazy, seeming as they wouldn't blow up until 3 years later, and that would be with their other album. But and I would say it's kind of before the big boom of hyperpop as well. So there was slightly. It's not like they were ahead of the game by years or anything like that, but you know they were still there before it blew up.
Yeah.
That being said, this reeks of band starting out, and whilst it's cool to see that this is basically initial gecs, the first gec I guess on here.
Yes.
And finding out what they sounded like and what they would eventually. This was a band that was all sound, no structure, and it feels weird when you describe gecs like that, because for most people it sounds like it's just noise and no structure anyway. But there is a certain structure in 100 gecs songs that has been ingrained into their songwriting, which is hard to describe. When you listen to songs off both 1000 gecs and 10,000 gecs, you notice there's an actual pretty mature songwriting structure into there, but it's just the way that the sound goes in that it makes it feel like it doesn't exist.
Oh, yes.
While here, this is, it's not a terrible mess, but it's that definite rough around the edges vibe that you get from very early early works that happen on here. It's
Yeah.
I'll say what I always do when we go early into this stuff. I'll do Dominic's takes on here. An interesting little look at the origins of the gecs sound, and some nice experimental moments like with how dog food changes partway through, and the apparent presence of a dental narrative between Fuck Teeth and the new song off 10,000 gecs, I Got My Tooth Removed. That said, there's nothing particularly else I want to shout out or highlight. It's a fun little historical note, it's a decent establishment of their sound. I love how truly influenced by gecs and MIDI dog barks they are, but he also has no favourites or least favourites. And if that's not a perfect summary of this EP, I don't know what it is. That's basically what we were just saying. Saying with a bit more production stuff in there. Yeah, the album art literally has gecs on it, like gecs in the game.
Yes.
They've crossed out the 64 and written 100 on there.
Yeah, it's definitely geck flavored, but it's like if like your favorite soft drink released like a limited edition throwback original recipe, and like you went and tasted that and you're like, oh, that's what it used to taste like. It's like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's that bad though.
Like, I'm not saying it's that bad either.
Yeah, but it's like when you go with that soft drink and you've had it before and you're going like, oh, that's what it used to taste like, and it has that bad taste in your mouth. This is, so they used to taste like this.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with the throwback recipe.
Yeah. It's really hard to... Dominic, I love you, but your picks have been very air this week, and you'd think from pretty established artists, and especially an artist, I think this would have been better, but I don't know, this is an EP that you listen to, but it... unlike the other albums, and this is the big issue when it comes to the structure list that it has on here, so it's not really structureless, it's just that, the rough around the edges, and they're not...
Yeah.
Cried during a songwriting compared to just making some fun music and stuff, and there's pleasure to that. But the beauty of 1,000 gecs in that album is songs like Ringtone or Money Machine, in which you might listen to it and you'll go like, what the fuck, this is just random noise, blah blah blah. But there's some really catchy structured choruses in there, which become fucking earworms that stick in your brain. It's incredibly well written as a pop album.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is the surprising part about it, and that's how it gets stuck, and that's why it's so likable. And this is just,
it's missing that pop.
Yeah, it's cool. Obviously, we're not listening to a band and going now, oh, they got potential now, we can see what happens. This is, we're seeing what happens with them. This is exactly what I expected debut EP to sound like.
Oh, yeah.
Favorites and least favorites?
No real. It was enjoyable.
Favorites? Probably Dog Food. I do agree. I do like the changes that one goes through in the different phases, but yeah, I don't really have a least favorite either. Maybe just the last one, just to give it one, but nothing's
as a spoiler, next week we're covering 10,000 gecs.
Yeah, Trix has become the full caffeinated transgender woman, so she can't stop picking 100 gecs.
I listened to 10,000 gecs 5 times the first day I listened to it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's so good.
What was that image that you posted, though? It was a blurred image of the...
1,000 gecs album art. It was transgender addicted caffeine test. A caffeine addicted transgender test.
Hello, I am coffee and I'm addicted to being transgender. Fine. I'll let you pick the next one.
Let's talk about a classic. Let's do The Cure's Pornography.
Alright, so I'm going to start off completely with Dominic's take. Never been too into The Cure. I like Robert Smith/his voice. I like certain tracks, particularly when they went more popular later on, but the Hanging Garden definitely stands out. I like certain other elements. I like the strings on Cold and the experimentation on the final track, but nothing stands out quite as much to me. I seem to like the idea of The Cure and gothic rock in general more than I like the execution. It would be cool to get more into The Cure, but I think I'm more of a Smiths fan instead. I don't think I've seen somebody ever write an L that bad.
Yeah, this is fucking pornography, dude.
Yeah, it's pornography. I know you can go up to basically any goth kid in the noughties or the 90s or the 10s or whatever, and just walk up to them and say, yeah, what about pornography? And they'll fucking go on and tell you everything about it. But
Yeah.
it's still a fucking classic album. Robert Smith was definitely the personification of the goth sound, and
Yes.
yeah,
I've
they
talked
will,
about
the
what
Cure
I
will,
do with my bosses at work.
and the Cure will probably always get that vibe, but you will also get everyone in England singing "Friday I'm in Love" anytime it starts playing in the pub.
Oh yeah.
For a fucking reason, it's the Cure. I ain't gonna be that. I like when I can be that pretentious asshole and go like, actually, yeah, no, I didn't like this thing that everybody likes, but no, I had this on once in the background, not even really listening to it, and it still stood out. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, he's definitely right. The Hanging Garden is probably the best track off here.
Oh, it is.
But it's no discredit to the rest of this album's sound at all. It's that little thing that I like in an album. It's not contrast. I don't think this album did contrast too much. I think it was very what's the word, consistent in the kind of sound that it was going for. But I still think that it was going for the sound in interesting enough ways that it wasn't like this whole 40 minutes of hearing the same note over and over and over again. It was just a really good goth album.
After I posted the 4-minute edit of the Dope Smoker, you mentioned playing the same note over and over again.
That's right, yeah, you posted a fucking soundtrack or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's just a fucking condensed version of Dope Smoker that just feels like the biggest cock tease ever.
That's funny. Anyway, Trix, you picked this album. Go ahead. You go ham.
Oh, I mean, it's just like a phenomenal collage of sound that just, oh god, I feel like it's just an album you gotta like just listen to and absorb, and digest, and it's fantastic.
You're gonna have to excuse those sounds there. There is a golf game happening on in the background, and it gets very competitive.
Oh yes.
Anyway, so I'm trying to find the best way to kind of describe it, and it's one of those. It's not one of those albums that's indescribable. And granted, this is probably where we feel the effects of losing Dominic on this podcast is probably the best at describing albums, but then he just takes an L on this album and goes like, yeah, nah, not really much happens outside the Hanging Garden. It's like, oh, well, no.
Did we listen to the same album, dude?
I'm going onto the Wikipedia article onto the legacy here, so this becomes just a history lesson now. In 2005, Spin cited the album as a high-water mark for goth's musical evolution, and Enemy described Pornography as arguably the album that invented goth. Now, I would probably argue against it having invented goth, but I definitely think it did popularize it.
Yes.
I remember there was this back in uni, there was this guy who was like a librarian or something, and he was dressed up kind of in black, had like the Edgar Allan Poe t-shirt, and I described him once to my dad, and I was like, you think that's a goth? And he just went to me and he just said, yeah, look, just ask if Pornography's his favorite album.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like fuck, I just kind of want to smoke Jar and Blacks while listening to this album on a cassette tape. Just in a cemetery somewhere.
Well, just sit down on a cemetery. Wait, like, I don't know whose grave you're going to be resting your head on here. But you got, on one hand, you got a pack of cigarettes. In the other hand, you got your cassette player that's hooked up into your headphones, which are over on your head. You're sleeping down on the ground, listening to The Hanging Garden at midnight whilst you're freezing your fucking ass off. But you're determined to get through the whole album because it would just be a vibe.
Yeah, pretty much.
A crow then irks in the distance, and whatever the fucking sound
like
a crow makes. A crow looked at me.
I might have to do this.
Yeah, you should do it. Film it. It'll be the fuck. Excuse me. There, I just completely burped, and then didn't come through. I forgot what I was doing. I've had a fucking brain fog
just
there.
an art house film that's me chain smoking, glove cigarettes.
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, no. Go to the cemetery, take it, listen to it, take a photo, and make it the podcast episode out.
Oh man, I might be able to do that.
Fuck, that'll be. It might be the one thing that could beat Egg Tit.
It might be Egg Tit, just me in a cemetery.
You could also put an egg on your tit whilst listening. You would probably get pneumonia.
It's not that cold out here. It's actually pretty warm now. We're getting into spring.
Anyway, go back onto the actual album itself, though. Try and actually talk about it and describe it. It's kind of... It's weird trying to describe kind of just gothic music in a way that hasn't already been described before. Because we've listened to a lot of artists that have put out more industrial sounding music, but goth in this form was basically industrial before industrial metal was as popular as it was.
Yes.
In that sound. It's this very kind of dark or haunting, slow moving kind of sound is a better way of describing it.
Yeah.
I think we've listened to a lot of more psychedelic type of music, or a lot of darker music, especially in the fifth wave emo scene. Actually, you remember how Nouns had a lot of that, or even Bigger Boot had a lot of those
yes,
those moments where it'd be very slow, very haunting and loud. And that's stuff that's kind of influenced from sounds that this album puts out. So, do you know... And maybe it's why Dominic has his take. Do you know if the Seinfeld is unfunny effect?
Yeah, it's like the... I'm vaguely aware of it.
I'll describe it anyway for people who don't know. It's the effect that people who are watching Seinfeld nowadays for the first time find it unfunny because all the jokes have been done already. And the reason why all the jokes have been done already is because people are copying Seinfeld.
Yes, that... Now it's ringing bells.
Yeah. And I don't even think really people have been able to properly cover or copy this album as well. I think it stands... I mean, it even stands in a style that's different to a lot of The Cure's discography as well. The Cure are obviously very depressed pop when they were making their big hits anyway.
Yes.
But this is one of those ones that are... It stands out in a cool way, and yeah, it's... I don't know, it's a good album. Me liking it.
Yeah. It's a creeping, dark album that just trudges along. It's like
you know what? I'll do a little take on here as well. You know what I think is actually the most comparable onto this? I know Dominic was trying to compare it to the Smiths. I actually want to compare it to Talking Heads. Because I actually think if we go on to Remain in Light and compare it to that, obviously the sounds are different, but I actually think there's some very similar song structuring.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, you know how the first song on Remain in Light is very loopy?
Yes.
Yeah, I would compare that with 100 Years as well.
I can definitely see that. It's also worth noting that on the Wikipedia page for Pornography, it states, following its release, bassist Simon Gallup left the band, and The Cure switched to a much brighter and more radio-friendly new wave sound. So, you're not wrong in comparing it more to Talking Heads than the Smiths.
Oh, so Robert Smith is an absolute lovable man, and Morrissey isn't?
Yes, Robert Smith is the anti-Morrissey.
Rob,
I need to find the Get in Loser We're Going Crying image. Hold up.
I'm just remembering that South Park episode with Robert Smith. He guest starred in it as he fought Barbra Streisand. Oh yes, Barbara's got another piece of the triangle, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. And at the end of that episode, I think the reason why he guest starred was because Matt Stone and Trey Parker are just massive fans of The Cure, and I think literally at the end of it, they get Stan to yell out, it's like, I think it's Disintegration, it's the best album of all time.
Sounds about right.
And I'm just gonna make sure it's Disintegration and not something else. But fuck, have you seen that episode?
I don't think I have.
This is what Robert Smith. This is what Robert Smith looked like in South Park.
I mean, it's like I'm looking at a photo of him.
Yeah, it's one of the only times as well that a guest stars actually voice themselves in South Park, because usually it's all impersonated. They rarely had guest stars. I remember they had George Clooney once, and all he did was play a dog and just go woof.
Yeah, the gay dog.
Yeah, which is fucking funny.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's the fuck? It doesn't mention what it is. I know it's in the Mecha Streisand episode. What does he yell? Yeah, it's Disintegration. It's the best album ever.
Night, guys.
So that's the yeah, that was the South Park episode. Pretty fucking funny. Anyway,
Night.
good album. It's for those who haven't heard Pornography. I know we're like the worst people to ever explain these types of albums, but it's a nice little haunt. And when we say haunting, this isn't like an album that will make you absolutely fucking have a panic attack. I think it's a pretty accessible dark album.
It's a very accessible dark album. And
accessible doesn't mean uninventive or uncreative, though.
No, you can be haunting without being thematic.
Yeah, I think that's. Well, I think there is a drama on this. I wouldn't argue against that, but I think that's a bit of the reason to love. I mean, Robert Smith's vocals are quite dramatic.
I meant I said trauma.
Trauma. I thought you said drama. They're two very similar words.
Very sounding words, but this album is very dramatic, as most goths are.
Yeah. Yeah, probably in a week I'll probably have listened to this again, and I'll probably have more to say about it. Until then, though, I still really, really like this album.
Yeah, it's a fucking banger album.
Favorites, 100 Years in the Hanging Garden. Least favorites, none.
No least favorites in 100 Years in Hanging Garden. Our favorites.
Cool. What are we doing next? Have we only got Mind Stuff left now?
Yep.
Shit. We really race through these ones, don't we?
Yeah, well, we don't have a third person to kind of just bounce it off and delay.
Yeah.
Last episode, we talked about sandwiches for 20 minutes.
Well, I don't think we've got any more sandwiches to talk about, but we do have some Hockey Dad to talk about.
We do have quite a bit of Hockey Dad to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot of Hockey Dad to talk about. It's the early day EP we're going to start off with. This was a 4-track limited time for, I think it was the second Bandcamp Friday ever.
Something like that.
That Hockey Dad released only for them. They haven't released it ever again since. It was 2 demos to songs that they have already released, plus 2 demos to songs that they haven't released.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic says, this is a fun look at a band just getting started. I like how psychedelic and lo-fi these demos sound. It lends Hockey Dad an interesting texture that's otherwise missing. While I was not impressed by Seaweed and Eva Form this week, Mr. Sunshine and Jump the Gun are fun little bangers. A cool little artifact of history I'm glad they released, even if it was only one day in May. Yep. I gotta say, his take on Seaweed is, I full disagree. I think the early day demo version, I definitely think it is a song that is a lot better being glossier. But
yes, it's a song that needs a sheen, a polish.
It's a good fucking song though, Dominic.
It's a good song.
Be with me.
I think this is just Dominic's L week.
Yeah, this is Dominic's L week. Sorry, Dominic, we've taken over the podcast.
We
now.
love you, Domino, but this is your L
week.
week.
We're taking L week. That's alright. Ash, you like Hockey Dad, right? This is Ash's L week.
Monty, you like Hockey Dad, right? That's what I thought.
The cat agreed. The cat has agreed. Anyway, early day EP. What we're starting off here. This is the good old record all your shit on GarageBand and then put out an EP before Your Arms on My Cocoon did it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no real. I know when it gets really lo-fi, you can claim it's psychedelic. It's not really psychedelic. It's just low production.
It's just lo-fi.
Yeah,
this EP really makes me want to just get a couple friends together in a garage and just fucking jam.
Yeah, there's a beauty to having just a little EP that's basically just we were performing the songs written, and then we got them out. I mean, granted, this isn't an official EP. This is a compilation EP basically, and two of these songs never got finished. I mean, Sambuca at 6 and Mr. Sunshine are good concept songs, but they're not finished songs.
Yeah, I think Mr. Sunshine might actually be my favorite off of the 4-song EP.
Shine on me today.
It's just so fucking catchy.
I know, it's really catchy, and I want them to make a finished version of it.
Yeah, and the Sambuca at 6 is pretty good too, but it's just give us a full Mr. Sunshine. It's that fucking guitar line with the
I found it was interesting that Jump the Gun was a song that they had a very early demo of as well.
Yeah, very, very much so. It's interesting.
So Jump the Gun is a song that they ended up releasing on their debut album, while Seaweed was on their debut EP. And then I Need a Woman, which was the song that they put out for the Triple J High School Unearthed, was the one that was on both the EP and the album, but wasn't on this. So that one was, I guess, really... It's just weird what the timings were, but it looks like Jump the Gun was just a song that they had for a while and then put onto the album, but wasn't on the EP, which, no real disrespect to that. It's just an interesting...
Yeah.
Interesting time capsule that's on here. But the more interesting songs of these demos are the ones that haven't been released ever or finished ever, because you're right, Mr. Sunshine is a really catchy surf pop tune, basically.
Yeah, I come back to Mr. Sunshine a lot. Like every time I'm like, I like to listen to Hockey Dad early days, what I'm really thinking is I need to listen to Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah, because you don't usually go out of your way to buy music as much as me or Dominic do.
No,
mostly due to finances. Obviously, if you got the money to buy a vinyl, you'll buy a vinyl or something like that. But you're more YouTube music. But Early Days EP was the one that you were buying on Bandcamp Friday when it was announced, and I think you have been probably listening to it a lot more than even I have.
Oh yeah, I come back to it at least bi-weekly.
I think you were originally planning to pick it before I did, weren't you?
I was originally planning to pick it at some point.
Yes, but I don't think you were going to pick it with the other stuff I picked.
No, I forget why I didn't pick it. Let me look and see if I can remember my fucked up thought process at that point.
I'm just going to go search up in here. Early Days. Let's see the history on this. There's day earlier here. There's a bunch of words of Early Days. This is just you saying that you've going back to it quite a lot. Some good tracks on that. And that was when it was released on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was $10 AUD for a 4-track EP digitally, so it wasn't too cheap either. But it was like
no, it wasn't.
It was Bandcamp Friday, so
yeah.
For those who haven't listened to it, I'm not going to guarantee you can find it on YouTube. Let's see.
I'm gonna be honest. I just searched it up when we started talking about this, and when you search for it, you just get actual Hockey Dads.
Oh wow. Yeah, subscribe so you don't miss Teens Across, though. That's only something, but yeah, Crazy Hockey... Oh, no, I know that video of the Crazy Hockey Dad where the guy smashes the fucking window.
Yeah. It's a classic.
Yeah, WA Original Tour. Alright, let's see. How about if I just search Sambuca at 6? At Sizz. Oh, that was the Simpsons one. Tell you what, actually, this is a pretty hard one to find online, so that's a...
Yeah, when I search up Hockey Dad and Mr. Sunshine, the first thing that pops up is rare footage of David McKenna speaking Korean.
God damn, that's... May I screenshot and make into an NFT?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'll screenshot it for you.
This is a fun little compilation EP. You're basically buying it as a donation to Hockey Dad whilst they were struggling in COVID.
Yeah.
But still, it's fun to get these little time capsules, and I do wish on this compilation we could have had some more stuff that wasn't like the Jump the Gun and Seaweed demos are the least interesting because we already know what the finished products sound like. But we could have hoped for a little bit more different songs on here. In the end, we got this. It was alright. I like it.
Yeah.
Good EP.
This is a really fun EP. No least favorites, and favorites is Mr. Sunshine.
Next one, I'm just deciding here. Do you want to do Live at the Drive-In, or do you want to do Geoff and the Spicolis?
Let's save the one that we haven't said anything about for last.
So, we'll do Live at the Drive-In?
Yeah.
Alright, so Live at the Drive-In. Back in late 2020, I think it might have been start of October or something like that, Hockey Dad finally managed to get some concerts going during COVID times. They announced, it was supposed to happen a couple weeks beforehand as well, but they announced that they were going to do a show at the Bulli Drive-In, which is just south of Wollongong, very close to Windang, where they're from. And tickets sold out because it was one of the only shows that were happening, so they did 2 shows. And it was a drive-in show. This wasn't, they were playing it at the drive-in. This was, you had to stay in your car and listen via the radio as they play on stage.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way that they could do a large-scale gig and still not get caught by COVID restrictions. So this would have been basically like you had to go in, you had to check in with the app so that you checked in for any COVID tracking. You had to basically make an agreement that you hadn't tested positive for COVID because the RAT tests and stuff went out, and that you had no symptoms, and that you wouldn't get out of your car. And it was my favorite fucking thing about this gig was that they literally told everybody to not make noise or loud noises with the cars, because there were neighbours nearby and they didn't want to risk noise complaints. And I have a feeling it's the reason that not many other bands did this afterwards. It was because the second the opening act went onto the stage, their first words were, "Can I get a beep beep?" And and it was fucked from then. Because very quickly everybody realised that they were getting everybody into the venue in a single line. How the fuck were they going to eject anyone?
Yeah.
It was just not possible to do. It's like, yeah, you had to leave, so now the 50,000 people behind you had to leave. It wasn't going to happen. And there were people. The crowd was. It's the funniest fucking crowd I've ever seen. There were people putting on their hazard lights as a way of doing the torch.
Okay, that's pretty cute.
Yeah, I was because I was there with Pete as well. So Pete did the good old hazard lights on his car as well.
That's great.
I think some people did the windshield wipers as well. And some people were touring the edge of what you could do with the COVID restrictions by... I kid you not, some people would get on top of their cars. Some people were moshing hard by sticking their legs in their car and just going outside of the window and doing the mosh. And one person got told to get back in their car when they actually left it and started gathering. It was one of the funniest crowds I have ever seen, and it's so surreal to have this kind of little time period now, because we won't really get drive-in gigs. They're just not viable. You had to have a large venue for practically what is a quarter of the size you could get with people. At best, maybe. And then everyone's got different car sizes and all that, and blah, blah, blah. So... and different radios and just all that. It had to be an outside vent. It is just not viable. This is one of those things that... there was supposed to be more drive-in gigs in Australia. This is seen as the way that we'll be able to do it whilst COVID is happening.
Yeah.
But from memory, there might have been another one, but I think Hockey Dad was the only one that actually managed to happen.
Impressive.
Because a bunch of the other ones were organised after Ritz, and they were supposed to be larger gigs as well. as in they would be in regional areas and stuff like that, and I think they would probably be like the same size would be able to fit in them, but larger as though like bigger acts are going to do that. I think I'm going to search it. I'm going to search it up actually now because this was just a really interesting fucking thing that happened. I've got who. Lime Cordial was supposed to happen, but I don't think that did. Let's see. Drive in, pack up. Last thing that happened on it was 9th of July of 2020, and I just don't think that ever happened. We might have had a couple ones on there. There might have been some upper. Maybe the Wiggles got some in. It looks like that, and I think that one probably wouldn't have been cancelled. But there were a lot of other ones of indie artists, and Lime Cordial was one of them that got cancelled because just at the timings that they were, then there were cases spotted in nearby, and they just didn't want to risk it, even though it was all in the cars, and that seems pretty ridiculous now.
And the Wiggles obviously is a real good fit for driving with their hit Big Red Car.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Just happening everywhere. That would be fucking great.
Toot, toot, chugga, big red car. We travel near and we travel far.
And I remember there was so many gigs and so many small little sit-in gigs that would get cancelled because there was a case that happened nearby or anything like that. King Gizzard, even when it was coming back a bit into the normalcy, we'll call it, they were supposed to have 5 concerts in one day. The first concert, one person got diagnosed with COVID, and the other 4 in a row got shut off. That's literally the Live in Brisbane album was the only one of those 5 that actually managed to happen. And that was and they were supposed to do shit for Vivid and Sid. So basically everything would get cancelled and like that. If you even got a gig, it was crazy. And this is, I'm assuming in your country, basically it was either gigs were not happening or gigs were happening and everybody was just pretending COVID didn't exist. Whilst here, it was just, if a gig happens, it's a miracle.
It was both.
Yeah.
It was both. We also, once COVID testing became viable, we had that a lot. And, you'd get temped at the door.
So, that's what the big context for this live show was. It was basically putting in as much as you could get with the COVID restrictions to get a large-scale gig. Happens all the way in the coastal town of Bulli, which is not a city town, it's a regional town.
Mm-hmm.
It's not... Wollongong itself, I wouldn't call exactly uncity-like, but it's definitely not as city as Sydney or Newcastle. Or Brisbane or Melbourne. And Bulli is below it, so it was there, it was basically an empty field. All the cars had to be far away from each other or not. And it's... I don't think we'll get a show like this for a very long time. This is something that just happened once, and it was fucking funny.
Yeah.
It happened for 2 nights, and that's what this show is. This album is. It is a compilation of both the nights that happened for the drive-in show. You can hear in the crowd, and it's what makes it funnier, is that instead of hearing the usual woo, 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 you hear the beep beeps happening all the time.
Yeah, it's a really cool ambiance.
And I remember at the gig as well, the amount of times in which the bands and stuff had to stop because they were told that they had to stop the fans from getting out of their cars, or some of them were even after the pinheads did their beep beep, but they were told that you weren't supposed to encourage that, and they actually tried to get people to stop, and it just didn't fucking work. It's fun.
People are gonna do what people are gonna do, and they're gonna make noise.
To get food and drinks and merch, this was interesting. It's just how it happened. To get all of that, you had to go on your phone after scanning the QR code and purchase it online, and they would hand deliver it to you in your car.
That has an option to backfire entirely.
I picked up a shirt. My brother picked up a shirt as well, plus the 7-inch to join the club.
Yeah.
Which comes with the Purple Sneakers B-side. and we also ordered some chips. But
Hell yeah.
we were basically like, because I was there with my partner Pete and my brother, and we stopped off at like a grocery store on the way before the gig. We were just like, yeah, just get all the snacks now, because basically you weren't. I think we stopped up at like Wollongong, Westfield, or something like that as well. We get like a burger or something for dinner, but we'd get all the snacks and then bring them in because, well, they're not going to stop you from bringing outside food in. How the fuck could they?
Yeah, it's the same case in a normal drive-in movie theater.
I think they were trying to stop alcohol from being snuck in, but that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
it's a lot more dangerous. Don't get me wrong about that.
Very much so.
But it was also the longest that it took to get out of a gig because you're just waiting for everyone to leave. It was fucking funny, man. It was just funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, the actual album itself, it's a Hockey Dad live album. It's mostly of Brain Candy. There's Seaweed, Sweet Release, and Join the Club on there as well. I believe the songs taken out, I know Milk in the Sun unfortunately wasn't on here, but they actually performed the full album in full first, so Sweet Release being on there earlier is just a bit weird. That's a compilation, but that was actually in the encore. The encore was actually a UMI cover, Join the Club, Sweet Release, and Seaweed, in which the version of Seaweed that they played at the drive-in, I don't think it's the one on the album. The one that they played at the show I went to, he forgot the lines, which is funny. Which I thought should have been something kept on here, but I don't think it is. And what's the other Brain Candy song that they took off? Is it Nestle Down or something, or is it Oh, let me quickly check. I have the ability to check all this stuff. It's Nestle Down.
Yes.
Fuck, I'm a golden here. Is it? Oh, and there'll be one other song. Sorry, taken off as well. The other song would be Reno.
So, yeah, Reno's not on here.
Yeah, Reno.
Reno's a banger.
Yeah, those are the 3 songs that didn't make it onto this compilation, but they performed them all.
Yeah.
It was Brain Candy in full. Plus, I remember when this show got cancelled the first time or delayed, they actually went to a theatre in Wollongong and they performed a little zombie film that was being played as their live gig. And that was when they did the full album in full and then ended it with a cover of Cut Your Hair from Pavement.
Gotcha.
That is still visible on YouTube, if I'm incorrect. And they actually performed that cover of Cut Your Hair at the next couple of shows they did after COVID ended. Or not COVID ended, sorry. After COVID restrictions ended for the first time. So it was actually the last show I went to before we got the second wave of COVID restrictions. But they performed Cut Your Hair live there as well, and that was at an actual bar. Or it was at a pub, sorry. But yeah. This is a live album. I'm not gonna lie and say that this is a really groundbreaking live album when you actually listen to it. But it's really funny to hear a crowd completely replaced with cars, and this is a great gig to be with. I just wanted to brag about.
Yeah. Now here's the question: BCNR live album this week or Hockey Dad live?
Hockey Dad.
Yeah, Hockey Dad.
Yeah, Hockey Dad. Not even a question now. Favorites off here. Yep. Tell you what. So I haven't actually said Dominic's views on this. It's nice to revisit Hockey Dad again after some time away. Brain Candy is a solid album, and I'm reminded of how much I like Germaphobe. They're a capable live act, their songs sound good no matter what, but my problem here is that there's so much uniformity and quality and style that it's hard to say really anything else than they were good. It was nice to see some occasional variety in style, like with Looking Forward to the Chains. However, my only other realization here was how much I've actually grown to like Join the Club as a song. It bangs. Finally, Dominic, you posted your first W.
Yeah.
Join the Club does indeed bang.
Join the Club is a banger.
Join the club, Dominic. Join the club.
Gotta be skinny. Gotta be skinny. Well, I'm trying to skinny up. Hence the fucking half marathon today.
Yeah, no, I'm on a similar vote. But talking about boats as well, let's go into the pirate-themed album art with Geoff and the Spicolis. That was the best segue I'm ever going to do, Trix.
I love that the only Bandcamp comment is that I love these guys. I hope to see them on the East Coast at one point. And it just feels like they've completely ignored the Australian accent in the songs.
I think the thing that you've probably ignored is that Wollongong is actually on the east coast of Australia.
Fuck.
So it's now the joke is.
I was just thinking of it in the fucking context of America.
The context of that, though, is that on their Bandcamp page, they're right there from San Jose, California. No, this is Hockey Dad. That's the joke on this. This is a little side project that they wrote. This would have been around the same time as their debut EP. Oh, no, actually, sorry. It would have been 26. It would have been their debut album, sorry. But yeah, it's a little EP that they put out on Bandcamp. No official ties to Hockey Dad. However, they had the ties to Farmer and the Owl, which is the music label that Hockey Dad is tied to. No shirt, no shoes, no dice. That's actually what it's the thing's called. No shirt, no shoes, no service. EP. Trix.
It's fun. It's real fun. It's more Hockey Dad that I didn't know about, and I'm happy to find that.
I'm going to start off with Dominic's take on this. I kind of adore this little anonymous EP and all it's supposed to be. I've always wanted more established acts like Hockey Dad to drop things like this in secret and not really tell anyone. The fact that it's themed around fast times at Richmond High actually helps it as a silly little spin-off / one-off, even though I've never seen the movie. I did not think Hockey Dad could give me more than the discography has already presented, but this has impressed me. Moments will live with me for a while, like, oh fuck, it's Mr. Hand. I won't pretend like every single stands out as a diverse album entry, but as a quick, dirty, lo-fi punk EP, Hockey Dad knows what's up. I wish they did it more. Linda is rather weird and creepy, and I think they did that on purpose. This is very lo-fi, but the difference between this and early days is that this is intentionally lo-fi. Whilst I would call Hockey Dad surf pop, surf rock, this is surf punk. It's Hockey Dad, it's more Hockey Dad, but it's heavier Hockey Dad.
Edgy Hockey Dad.
Yeah.
It's the Hockey Dad that breaks the glass.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more edge in this. I mean, you go to songs like Lincoln Sucks, which is Lincoln Sucks, get fucked. That reminds me of songs like Sambuca at 6.
Yeah.
In the style that it has in there. It's that very edgy, it's a very edgy sound for Hockey Dad, and you gotta remember that Hockey Dad don't swear much in their music. They're not against it. It's not that they won't do it, it's just that they rarely do, and this one's very much we're making the edgy album now, let's have fun. And there's no part on this record which makes me think that they're actually trying to do anything else other than what this album is, or this EP I guess is. And that's the beauty of it. This is a really fun little surf punk side project that I've done on here. I'm honestly surprised that they've never just gotten bored and gone back to this.
Yeah, I want this. I want a cassette tape of this that just exists in a pile of cassette tapes.
And I love that the album art is, I believe, I don't know who the album art is of, but it's basically a pirate in a Lincoln.
I'm gonna try and.
I'm gonna assume it's a Lincoln anyway. Because it's the only way that makes sense, but yeah, well, there's songs that quickly about the song "Flipping Burgers," which is literally just about flipping burgers. There's a whole lot of fucking nothing on this, but there's a certain vibe to the nothing, and that's the best way of describing this. Really, it's
Judge Reinhold from the Fast Times of Ridgemont High.
There you go. So yeah, I don't really know Fast Time at Ridgemont High, as Dominic said. Yeah, there's a lot of reference to that in this EP as well, which is probably lost on me because I never watched that movie. But I think that's really funny to kind of just like watch a movie that's basically just a high school sex comedy, from what I remember about it. And then
that's what a lot of 80s movies were, man.
Yeah, and then just make a fucking EP about it. It's great, man. This bangs. It's not. It doesn't do enough to make me go and say to any Hockey Dad fan, like, nah, actually, this is better. But it does enough that it goes to, if you're a Hockey Dad fan, you should listen to this because it's more Hockey Dad. This isn't a if you're a true Hockey Dad fan, you should listen to this. This is a if you're a Hockey Dad fan, here's more Hockey Dad that you probably didn't know existed. Because this is they basically did no advertising of this, but they don't refuse its existence. It's just they just put it out. It's not like Green Day in the network where they're just like they will like for years say like, nah, it's different things, man. We're not the network. And then they just kind of just gave up and then stopped answering the question, but everyone knows it's the same fucking thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst this is them just putting out a record under a different name because they just... I mean, they could have easily have put this under a Hockey Dad thing. I think they're maybe afraid that maybe it was a bit too comical to put out as a sophomore for Hockey Dad.
I can see that.
Maybe. I mean, this is just after their album. But I would honestly pay to see them perform some of these songs live.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Geoff and the Spicolis has never been tweeted about, it looks like.
Yep. You know how I found out about this one? Someone on their Triple J subreddit, the unofficial Triple J subreddit, someone asked Hockey Dad on their Ask Me Anything that happened there if they would ever do a project like this again, and they were just like, yeah, probably not, but they ignored its existence, and that was like, alright, let's check this out. So one random person remembered that it existed, and it would have had to have been someone from around Wollongong, because it really... The only times I've seen Geoff and the Spicolis on any social media that I searched up was music farmers announcing at some little festival in Wollongong that they would be playing.
Fair enough.
And they called it a mysterious act in a kind of like joking way, which is like, yeah. I mean, a lot of people around the area.
I'm showing that I have the only one that's tweeted about Geoff and the Spicolis. And yes, I did search with an ampersand.
That's great. You've done Twitter first. You should have tagged Hockey Dad in it. Should have gotten even worse.
I might.
This is a really fun, fast-paced surf punk EP. We've covered a lot of surf punk as well, thanks to you, Trix. Where do you think this stands compared to something like a Ritz or a...
This is pretty up there, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe not quite on the level of like a Beach Goons, but it's pretty up there.
Good EP. This has been a nice little foray back into Hockey Dad. I think I hadn't been too interested in going to their early stuff just because I didn't think there was too much to add back onto there. But I think it's a bit more interesting now that we've got this little side project on here. I think anybody who hasn't listened to this should listen to this. It's not going to change your mood on any type of bands or any genre, but I mean, Hockey Dad's pretty popular here, so Hockey Dad fans, give it a listen.
Oh yes.
Favorites: Drive Me to the Clinic, Lincoln Sucks. Least favorite: I like the creepy vibe of Linda, but it just doesn't fit in here.
Linda's my favorite, actually. I'm not gonna lie.
All right.
And I don't have a least favorite.
And with that, I think that's everything covered, isn't it?
It is.
Let's start off with Dominic's ranking, and let's laugh at him.
Indeed.
So, are you ready for what he put last?
Yep.
He put The Cure's Pornography at last.
Pure blasphemy.
Yeah, that's blasphemy, man. Yeah. After that, he's put in Hockey Dad Live, then he's put in 100 gecs, then Hockey Dad Early Days, then Geoff and the Spicolis, and then BCNR. Now, if we're going to rank Ants from up there, then Ants from up there is my favorite out of all of this. But I'm not ranking Ants from up there, because we've already ranked that. It's already been covered. Fuck off. And I say that absolutely loving Black Country New Road. So, my rankings is, my least favorite is probably going to have to be the Deluxe tracks or Live from Elizabeth Hall, in which it's actually known. Sorry, Dominic, but I beat you on this one. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. It's Live from the Green Elizabeth Hall, so I actually fucked up as well. After that, I'm going to put in 100 gecs with their EP. Then I'm going to... This is the rough one. I'm going to put in the Live at the Drive-In as an actual album above 100 gecs. And then I reckon I'm going to tie Geoff and the Spicolis and Hockey Dad Early Days. Because they're both very similar to each other. One's just demos and one's a lo-fi side project. But I actually kind of enjoy them very similarly. I might get the tiebreaker to Geoff and the Spicolis though, but consider it a tie for now. And then, of course, leaves the favourite as the cutest Pornography.
My favorites to least favorites is exactly the same as yours, except I'm not going to be a coward and say that Geoff and the Spicolis is superior to Early Days.
Calling me a coward?
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough, actually. Okay. Trix, are you ready for the announcement of what we're doing next week?
Yes.
So, some time ago, we interviewed Lorenzo G. Cook from Petite League. A couple of weeks ago, probably a month ago now at this point, we interviewed Mitchell and Greg from the Rick and Run Club. Well, next week we finally put our interview tally up to 3 as we do the biggest boot interview that we've ever done by interviewing Bigger Boot. That's right.
And we truly become the definitive Fifth Wave Emo podcast.
We are getting so much closer to the Brandon McDonald interview. It's insane.
Yeah, like it's actually within our reach.
Yep. So sorry, Cameron. We're interested in the interview, but we just need to know. We need to let everybody know what our actual motives are.
Yes.
When the Homosphere interview is done, that's when I quit the podcast because I've already climbed the mountain.
Yeah. Was Seaman staining the mountaintops?
Seaman stains the mountaintop. And since we don't announce the albums that we're doing for the week after it's in those interviews, I figured we should probably let them know now. Trix, you already mentioned that you're doing 10,000 gecs, but you have another album that you want to pick as well, don't you?
Yes, and a single I'm tacking on. I'm going to be doing 10,000 gecs, as I said. And Phone Boy's Moving Out.
Yes, you're bringing us into the Phone Boy, I guess, fan base this year, aren't you?
Yeah. It's a fun little album. And then I'm also going to be doing the single Crusades of the Elven Staff by the band Netherwalker, because it's a random deathcore band that randomly has the voice of Chowder as a featured singer.
That's fucking funny.
Yeah.
Now, Dominic has also picked a little fun thing that we're going to do over the next, 2 weeks of our listening here. He's returning to the Radiohead versus Muse fight. And by he's returning, I mean we're all returning because that's how group projects work. But we're going to be covering Radiohead's The Bends versus Muse's Origin of Symmetry. And I'm going to get all the Radioheads fighting at me right now when I say Origin of Symmetry is better.
I have no dog in the fight.
But he's also throwing in the Radiohead track Talk Show Host for good measure. But for the reason of we want to talk about the evolution of their sound. I've basically said that every word that Dominic has typed out here. It has stretched this podcast out by 5 minutes.
Indeed. And
I'm covering an artist that I've been introduced to a couple years ago, but finally like this new album, so I'm going to cover it. No, it's not something that you and Dominic have brought me onto, so we're not going to get the Petite League joke happening anymore. But Trix, you're a big fan of the album art I just shared with you, aren't you?
Oh yes.
Yeah, this is of their previous, I think it's their debut album, 6 Smoking Songs, and there's a cassette which just looks like a cigarette packet.
Yes.
Like the warning on it. But they've actually gotten surprisingly into more trouble with their new album art. Because their new album art is a giant scratchy. But it's not because it's a depiction of a scratchy that it's gotten into trouble. It's because it actually is a scratchy, which is why it got into trouble. Into the point in which South Australia actually had it banned for a bit until it got a special exemption to release in in the state. So they officially managed to get their album banned before anyone heard it, which I think is incredible.
Damn.
But it's genuinely a scratchy. If you buy the vinyl right now on the store, it's only the first pressing that will do it. But you have a chance of even getting the normal album art, which is 2 bananas and a monkey, or you could scratch off 3 bananas and you win the prize. There's an actual prize element to it, which I think is fucking funny.
Wow.
But
that is.
they're also... Trix, have you heard of liquid-filled vinyl?
Liquid field vinyl?
Filled. Well, they've injected liquid into this gold-plated vinyl.
I have not.
Yeah, so they this is the other thing that they got in trouble for. And I kid you not. Tell you what do you think it is? What do you think they fucking put into the vinyl?
Gin.
You think it was gin? I think
I'm pulling something out of my ass at this point.
So I'm going to share the news article with you because this is just fucking funny. And I want you to read it out. Yeah. Read it out, Trix.
Private Function released first ever urine-filled vinyl, and it's the gold copy.
Yep, gold-plated vinyl, and they announced that it would have a liquid in it, and then after a while they announced that it was
piss.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the vocalist's piss.
Let's see here. It just says our piss.
Yeah, the punk rockers then urged fans not to use the band members' DNA to commit crimes.
Yeah. But
yes, we're covering the new Private Function album. I'm not going to say all the fucking numbers in there because I can't remember them off heart. But what it actually stands for is "Hello Arsehole" backwards.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spoil what this album has. Trix?
And it's the entire band. It's not just the singers. There's a video.
Oh wow. Trix, this is a pub rock album. What do you think the funniest thing that we could be listening to next week or 2 weeks from now will be?
The Wiggles.
No, we're listening to a pub rock cover of Coldplay's Yellow.
Yes.
That is not an additional thing I'm adding. That's on the album.
Oh fuck yeah.
It's usually I don't pick just 29 minutes of music anymore, but that's it. I actually have no more additions to this. So Private Function's Hello Arsehole, the Radiohead versus Muse with the bends and Origin of Symmetry, 10,000 gecs, Phone Boys Moving Out, plus the deathcore single with the voice of Chowder on it will be the stuff that we're covering in 2 weeks. But until then, I have been Ritalin. You catch me hopefully not with a blocked nose anymore in however long it takes for this blocked nose to get off, but also on my website ritalinforkids.github.io, and I also have a YouTube channel that's in the description below.
I've been Trix. Catch me on Twitter. If it's still around, who knows? I'm the only one who's tweeting about Geoff and the Spicolis. And check out Dominic shit in the description, and also...
Yeah, he writes for Tilting Windmill Studios, I think it's what it is sometimes.
He cheats on us with another podcast, the Games My Mom Found podcast.
Yep. We also have a website, dissonantwaves.space, I think.
Yes, and buy our clock off Redbubble.
Yeah, buy our clock. Come on.
Buy our impossible puzzle.
Yep. Until then, though, have a good week, everyone.
Yeah.